You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It's your host, Brian Fullerton here, hanging with you guys. And today, we've got another great guest interview lined up for you guys. We got none other than Robert Piehl joining us all the way from Jackson, Wisconsin with Optimal Lawn Maintenance. So, Robert, how you doing this morning, brother?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
Doing good, man. We are rocking and rolling here. Never a dull moment. Season's changing. Getting the temperature is mid-80s this week, but all next week it's getting down into the 70s, and the low is going to be like 58s and 59s, which is wild. So you know what that means. Fall is right around the corner. So I'm telling you, like you already know, you're in Wisconsin, you're in the Midwest. How's the weather over there for you guys? Rain, sleet, snow, shine? What are you guys doing now?
You know, you go to bed at night and then you wake up in the morning. You never know what you're going to get. But
right.
It's like mid 80s here today. It's been crazy humid, and you know, we're waking up with a bunch of dew on the grass in the morning, and sometimes these lawns are growing. I mean, they're growing like it's spring some days. It feels like, but
yep.
The grass is growing. It's not burning out this year like it was last year, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I was just saying that to my guy Rob. We've had some crazy weeks with some crazy growth. This last week was the first week where it was like weekly growth without, you guys know what I'm saying. It was like just it grew a smidge, you know what I mean? And like, thank God. Yep. And same thing. The 2 weeks before, though, my gosh, the grass was growing like an inch or two a week for us, and just it felt like the spring rush again. And then, you know, you start edging, and it's just like time. And I'm like, we're working till 6:30 some days, and I'm like, that's wild. And so this last couple of days, the grass was just like weekly growth, pretty minimal maintenance, not a lot of trimming, which was nice. Still took us, 40 hours to finish up the route, but thankfully we weren't working a bunch of extra hours this last week. So over there in Wisconsin, you're over in Jackson. Where is that in relation to like anywhere somebody would know, like big city wise? Are you guys know Milwaukee, or what's going on over there?
Yeah, so Jackson's about 25 minutes straight up the interstate from Milwaukee. Okay. And then it's about 15 minutes south of West Bend. So those are probably the two biggest cities that Jackson lies in the middle of. Okay. Is it more rural? Is it a little bit larger city where you guys have all your business in just one neck of the woods, or are you guys going multiple towns? Or yeah, it's a little bit of everything. Jackson itself only has about 6,500 people in it, but in the next 2, 3, 4 years, it's going to double, triple, quadruple with all the new subdevelopments that are being built right around here. And then West Bend has, I think it's like almost 50,000 people now.
Oh, wow.
So the majority of my route is in Jackson and West Bend. And then I creep a little bit to the east. You go 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and you're all the way to the lake. So
wow.
I got a pretty good triangle of potential and of current clients. I can spend a whole day or two in just one city or one village, and that's what my day will be.
That's good. That's really, really good for profitability and route density, and I'm always wondering, because like as you go west or even, northwest, it kind of opens up in some different parts of the country. And I'm always wondering, like, hey, are you guys doing subdivisions, more rural properties, 1 acre, 2 acre sites? Of course, no right or wrong answer. It's just always hearing what everybody's got going on around the country. So you guys are of a booming town, but turned into a decent sized city here with a bunch of new developments.
Yeah. Like I said, give it a couple of years, and I should be able to have my whole route, or I should say my whole week in Jackson and West Bend versus going out to some of the more rural areas, or going to some of the other, 15-minute drives to get to another city, which really isn't bad. You take 15 minutes any direction on a county highway, and you're in the middle of a huge potential customer base. But It'd be nice to have everything, right here in Jackson or West Bend. But 2 out of my 4 days of mowing are already here, so I'm halfway there.
Okay. Yeah, that's really, really cool. So let me ask you this, just so we can get some perspective on your company. On Instagram, we call it the highlight reel. On the podcast, I just call it like, same thing. Your highlights, your stats. So how old are you? What's your business look like today? How long have you guys been in business? Give me like the 1 or 2 minute kind of like high level who you are and where you're from and everything you got going on.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. So I'm 33. I got two little ones at home. One is 3.5, and one's a year and a half old.
Cool.
And I've been in business here for this is actually my first 100% full-time season. I quit my former job in April of this year, and hit the ground running.
Wow!
Right from that.
Awesome.
But, last season was a true test run. We can get into my background a little bit if you want, but I was a police officer for almost 10 years, working third shift for most of it. So I'd work at night, come home in the morning, and I'd bang out 5, 6, 7, 8 yards in the morning 3 or 4 times a week. And last year I gave it a real good test run to see if it was viable. And man, I started turning down more work than I could, ever ask for. And it came to a head, and had to make a decision. And this was a decision that I made based on, learning from you, from all the guys on YouTube, the podcast, and then my father-in-law. He's up in Green Bay. He's been doing this for 40, 45 years. So
oh wow!
I've got a huge mentor that I can bounce ideas off of, and get encouragement from. And
yeah,
that's where we went. And so now it's just me. I run it solo. I'll probably look to pick up a part-time guy next year. I'm already cutting almost 50 lawns a week by myself, and then doing the other maintenance stuff, aerations, dethatching, spring and fall cleanup, leaf removal. Test ran some snow removal last year, so I'm gonna do residential snow full time this winter. And I got shameless plug, that contract that you've got going on for commercial and residential snow it's been key.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's, dude, you got nothing but good things going on, like all new things, learning things. I'm sure it's been dynamic and crazy behind the scenes, like job changes, life changes, little babies running around when you get home. It's never
it's not
never dull moment.
5:30 in the morning to bedtime. It's nonstop.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, good for you guys, man. That's really exciting. Well, there's a lot of things there that I want to unpackage and hear how you're approaching things and tackling things, including residential snow as a lot of the conversation moves to fall and winter. This time of year, as we're recording this podcast, real time September 22. Snow's right around the corner. I've been putting out a couple podcasts lately about snow, trying to just help you guys out as much as I can. We don't have it all figured out, but we'll talk a little bit about both, and including you said your background was in law enforcement. I want to hear about how you were able to manage that schedule, and then what helped you make the decision to go full time here in just a second. So let's do this really quick, guys. We're going to hear a little bit more from today's show sponsors announcements, and we're going to kick it down to Marty, Mr. Producer, down in the ATL, and then we're going to come right on back.
Entrepreneur Academy Live is back and better than ever. LAL 22 Live. Saturday, November 12th in Novi, Michigan. Join 400 fellow entrepreneurs and learn from some of the best in the industry at this powerful conference that will help you grow your business. Speakers include James Mansky, Mike Andes, Paver Pete, Troy Clogg, Nick Carlson, and Mark Bradley of LMN, just to name a few. Get your ticket now for the early bird price of $197. The price goes up the end of September. Your ticket covers access to the conference, lunch on Saturday, and free admission to the Friday night go-kart races. It's going to be so much fun. We'll see you in Novi, Michigan, Saturday, November 12th. LAL 22 Live. Sponsored by Xmark, Ballard Products, Sure Track, Kelly & Sons Trailers, and Yard Book. Grab your ticket now at LawnTrepreneurAcademy.com.
All right, Robert. Well, we are headed right back to you, my friend. I want to get as much of your story here on the podcast that we can in the short while that I've got you. We actually have like back-to-back podcasts that we're ripping through today, and getting some great guests lined up for the rest of the week, the rest of the month. So let's go back to, I want to talk about how you got started in the industry, and then you had a background, I think you said in law enforcement, correct? So
Correct, yep.
So what did you get off the out of training in the academy, go into law enforcement work, and then were you running the business on the side? Like, how did that all start? What was the inception story from there?
Yeah, so I mean, we can go way back. When I was growing up, I was always the one in the family that wanted to cut the yard and get outside and do that. I never did any kind of, like in my youth, going around the neighborhood like all these young guys that are coming up and, you know, making their little contraptions and wagons and hauling everything around the neighborhood. But
Sure. Making the soapboxes back in the day, right?
yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. I went to college at UW-Madison, full blown into it. I was going to go to law school, and senior year at college decided that, you know, being in a courtroom or an office just wasn't for me. And the next best thing after an internship was to go into law enforcement, be out in the field. So I did that for almost 10 years. It was 2 months shy of the 10-year mark when I left in April.
Wow.
And,
wow.
Did that. I was a deputy sheriff for a little over 4 years. And then I moved over to the Milwaukee area and worked for a department that neighbored 75% of our borders were, you know, the rough areas of Milwaukee. So there was a lot of spillover. It was a very affluent community that I worked for, but the spillover from Milwaukee was pretty eye-opening and unreal at times. But did that for another 5.5 years or so, and you know, 2 or 3, 4 years into that, like I mentioned earlier, my father-in-law, he runs a business up in Green Bay. Been doing it for about 40, 45 years. He's on the tail end of it. My wife and I would kind of joke about, you know, should we pack up and move to Green Bay, back to where she's from, and
right.
Take over her dad's business that's already established, or, you know, try to do something here. And I grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur himself, so, you know, that's always been kind of a little fire in me, and decided to go for it. When we bought our house in the city that I worked for near Milwaukee, a realtor had a business partner who he's got a pretty big lawn and landscape business right now. So I picked up some of his yards, just, you know, on the side for cash with my little 5x8 trailer that I pulled behind the truck that I had, and push mowed in 10 or 15 of those super urban lots that are 2,000 square feet if you're lucky. And, you know, made some good cash doing that, and I saw the potential in it. So went from there. And
well, really quick, were you already working your officer job with the law enforcement, or were you?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were doing both.
I was doing both. Yep. So I was working second or third shift at the time, and, you know, on my free time or my days off, I'd go out and cut. I think it was like 12 or 15 yards that I was doing for this gentleman, and I enjoyed it. I really liked it, and I saw the potential. So I started getting more serious about it, getting some more serious equipment, and started to take on my own properties, and it kind of just snowballed from there to where this.
How were you able to manage? Because that's one question I get a ton with from coaching calls to different people that we get on the podcast. I love just kind of cracking that egg open because, you know, when it's 10, 12 lawns on the side for somebody that you're subbing out for, and they're paying you $20, $40, $50 to do some of these lots, and they're like, hey, no real set schedule, just knock them down, make them look nice. And maybe that was the case, maybe that wasn't the case, but that's what I was just taking away from that. That's a little bit more chill, a little bit more flexible. But how did you manage with mowing, trying to keep people on like a semi-regular schedule when you started to do your own thing?
It was a little difficult making that transition. I worked, my schedule was 4 days on, 2 days off. So I never had the same days off. I never, you know, had the same weekends off. So I couldn't go out on, you know, every Saturday morning and do it. And when I started, the guy I was working for had me cutting lawns every 10 days. So that threw another little wrench into the schedule. So it was really getting away from that and going to a set schedule. And when I was working third shift, it'd be, you know, I'd work 10 p.m. at night to 6 in the morning, come home, say hi to the family, and, you know, go out for 4 hours or 5 hours, come home, sleep, and repeat. And it just kind of one of those things. Law enforcement is I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade the experience for the world, but, you know, I wouldn't go back to doing that kind of schedule. It's very difficult to do and to manage, and, you know, you catch a late call and you're stuck late at work, and it throws a wrench in the rest of the week, and you know, that overtime training, everything that goes with it. So it's really just being very disciplined and very practiced and intentional with what I was doing, and making sure that, you know, things stayed on the straight and narrow how they should.
Okay. Yeah. So how long have you been, this is your first full year. Last year you were kind of testing the waters with that as well. What do you mean by that? Like, were you able to take some vacation work and pay time off, or did you like false start, like go for it for a couple weeks and then say, hold on, I got to come back. Let's get the boat closer to the dock? Or what was your story the last 18 months? Because I think a lot of people are in that position listening to the show. They want to go full time. I always get the question, when's the best time to go full time? And I'm like, that is a very dynamic question. It's not an elusive question. I'm not trying to beat around the bush. It's just everybody's life and situation is different. You do have to get a couple things lined up. What was that last, I guess it'd be almost 18 months for you guys now. What since last year's spring, what did that all look like?
Yeah. So it turned into some serious conversations with my wife about whether or not I wanted to stay in law enforcement or if I wanted to pursue this. And she was very supportive of it. So it was like, all right, let's do some research. Let's get learning, figure out, best practices. And that's really when I found, your YouTube channel and, working third shift. I mean, it can go from 0 to 100, in a second, but there's a lot of downtime. So I spent a lot of time, watching or listening to your videos and just kind of figuring out what the best practice would be. And then jumped right into getting everything legit right off the bat, went with Yard Book to make everything, look professional. I had a logo designed professionally by a graphic artist friend of mine and just try to make it look as professional as I could be. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward or rewind, I guess to 18 months ago, my son was born in May of last year, or COVID's got me all messed up. May of 2020.
Right? Yep.
And May of 2021. So he's a year and a half old now, but it just worked out that I took 2 months of paternity leave in May of last year. So I had 60 days, really 8 or 9 weeks to be at home with my wife and my kids, but also to get a regimented mowing schedule down. And, you're my Monday customer, you're my Tuesday customer, you're my Wednesday customer, and get everything down. And that was when I say a test run, that was really a test run as to could I run the business? Could I operate the business at a profitable level? And could I manage the workload? Could I manage the schedule? Could I manage the overhead, the billing, all that stuff? And don't get me wrong, it was not easy having a newborn, having a 2-year-old at that time, and knowing that I had to go back to work in July of that year, right in the dog days of summer, and keep everything going. So that rolled into going back to work in the summer, working third shift, coming home, keeping my mowing route on the days that it should be, and then also doing family stuff. So really, it was challenging, but it's one of those things that I proved to myself really that I could go out and do this full time. And getting the phone calls that I was getting and having to turn down, we talk about getting the boat close to the dock. It's not really, in my case, it wasn't really possible to get that income level to match, but right. I could see the potential that the income level would be matched. Mm-hmm. And, fast forward to today, I'm mowing almost 50 customers, like I said, a week. And, I've replaced my law enforcement income in the first year.
Sure. That's awesome. Yeah. And that's one thing. And I can totally relate. I mean, to go back in the days when I was working at True Green, like it's just, here's an interesting scenario. Imagine this. So many of you guys listening in, you're making 15, 20, 30,000, 50,000 on the side, working your business 20, 30 hours a week on the side. And to me, I talked about this in a YouTube video, talking about going full time. And it's an oldie, it's a goodie. It's got, I don't know, probably 50,000 views now on YouTube. But it's like, okay, if you inverted that whole life situation and you were able to actually work your lawn and landscaping business 40, 50, 60 hours a week, to me, it's just a very logical conclusion that if you're making 50 on the side, nights and weekends, you should be able to make 50 to 100 working this thing like an actual job, working an actual 40, 50 hours a week at it, plus. So it is tough to like catch that surf, like you were talking about, when you're burning the candle at both ends. It's just you can't put in 40 hours worth a week or take on 40 hours a week of customers, right? When you have your original 9-to-5 job, whatever job, whatever schedule you guys have, So that season is pretty chaotic though, because it's like finding that tipping point of having enough revenue come in, enough profit being left over to also try to match that first job income as close as you can. And so were those tough conversations? Were they unfun conversations? Let's be real. I mean, those are, challenging conversations with a spouse? I mean, we're always selling, we're always spinning the dream, for ourselves and our spouses. And did your wife understand? Was it? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a tough situation, but what was that conversation like? Because I think a lot of people are trying to have those conversations right now, and they're saying, yeah, and the wife's like, I'm not getting rid of $60,000 a year, So like, and by the way, I don't blame them, women crave security. So some of you guys are like, I'm just throwing caution to the wind. I'm like, hey, might want to be a little bit more diplomatic and try to get an attack plan. So don't just wing it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. We had some pretty to the point and tough conversations about it. I mean, with overtime and stuff in my law enforcement job, especially at the agency that I most recently was at, I mean, making 90, 100, 110,000 with overtime was not something that was out of reach by any means. I could go through a whole year and not pick up a bunch of voluntary overtime and still almost crack that 6-figure mark. So to do that, and then, the state of Wisconsin is one of the best pension plans in the United States. Yep. So to give that up, the comfortability of that, to be able to retire at 52 and live off of a paycheck and not work for the rest of my life.
Right.
And being the one that was carrying insurance, I'm very fortunate that my wife works full time in HR, and she's able to bridge that gap when I first quit, to be able to make sure that if things didn't go to plan, we had a fallback. We've been fortunate that things have gone to plan so far. With managing money correctly, and I took all my overtime, I took all the money that I made last year in the business and just reinvested it to be able to buy a better trailer, to buy better equipment, and just really reinvest while piloting the part-time mowing stuff and get it to where I could hit the ground running in April and not really have any other fears. But, if the business didn't succeed, it was my own fault.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that, because that's the conversation that some of you guys listening in, you got to have that conversation. Sometimes it's just by yourself because you're a single guy, and that's an easy one. And you're like, low overhead, low risk, let's go for it, wing it, and you're 18, 20, 25, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to make a change. And trust me, I've been there. I get it. Other people I talk to will do a coaching call, and they're same situation as you are, but maybe they don't have any kids and the wife's working. Other situations, the wife's not working. They've got 3 little ones under 4.
Yeah.
He's leaving an $80,000 a year sales job or whatever. And he's like, and he hasn't got his first customer or bought his first piece of equipment yet. And I'm like, hey, I'm not really a big cold turkey guy. Sometimes, sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. This is maybe a ramp up both, but it's more dynamic. It's just a different challenge, And there's a friend of mine. He's down in Ohio. I don't want to say his name because every time I do, he thinks he's my favorite, And his name is. We'll just go with D. Stevenson, or probably too much there. How about just Dylan S? And so every time we talk, when he was leaving his job, he had multiple 6 figures in the bank. So it was a far less concern for him to flush his job, which he did a really respectful way and put in his 2 weeks and all that mess. But he was leaving a $80,000 a year job to make $80,000 that next season, So, but he had a big safety net, and so everybody's different. And that's why I always tell people, like, have that conversation, soundboard off of somebody that you that's an anchor in your life. If you don't have that person, find your hero on the internet and reach out to them and see if they got a coaching call or shoot them an email. And nobody's a guru, but it is nice to just talk things out loud, get that outside perspective. So,
Yep. And I know exactly who you're talking about. And I loved watching his story and watching him do that. That was pretty awesome. And it was honestly inspirational to watch him, make that full-time leap and
Amen. Yeah.
His business is crazy now. His business is awesome.
Well, now that he went full time, he's got more time to do things on his schedule, and so he texts me. He texts me twice as much. So it's kind of I should have told him to work his job for another 5 years.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's funny right there. He's cracking up right now, and he's probably curling his mustache. But any which way, shave that thing off, Dylan. It's looks like a catfish. But any which way, so let's keep going on the conversation here. So one thing I wanted to talk about was you had said that your father-in-law has 45 plus years in the industry. That's pretty cool. What were you able to gain from him or glean from him with his experience? Was it similar conversation that you were having and watching from podcasts and YouTube videos? Was it lining up? Was it totally different because it's a different market? Like what was some of the things that maybe you took away from his 45 years in the industry? Because I mean, to have a business that long and then in our industry that long and survive that long and flourish that long, that's a really, really cool, unique story.
Yeah, it's been awesome to compare his story to all of the, the social media stories that you see. He's done everything from, the mowing and extra maintenances to now have come full circle. All he does is mow, and he gets his 100 yards done with his two part-time helpers by Wednesday afternoon, and golfs on Thursday and Friday every week. But
wow,
he has done route density to a T. I think he spends like $40 or $50, maybe $80 of the gas increase between his truck and his mowers on his entire route.
That's
for
awesome.
the week.
Yeah.
And he drops the trailer and he hits 6 yards, and he'll walk down to the next yard while the guys move the truck. And it's pretty eye-opening to see how efficient you can get once you dedicate to getting that route density and doing good work so the neighbors see it and getting them on board. Taking the pros and cons from him, and he still does everything on paper invoices, checks in the mail, that whole thing. So I took the card on file to heart, and made that the day one requirement for all my customers, and taking bits and pieces of what works and what doesn't work for him and for you and for other guys that I talk to in my area and see on social media, and just piecemealing everything together. And I mentioned to you before, being 7 years ahead of the game by starting out and learning, spending a year and a half learning before going full time. And it's not an exaggeration to say I'm probably, a decade ahead of where I would be if I was just, starting blind and didn't have the resources that I have.
Sure. I mean, and I wish, there's no other way to do it or to say it, but like, I wish I was in your position 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 17 years ago. And I just talked on the podcast, we're talking about snow. Did you listen to the snow contracts episode we put out just the other day?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I just was like, I literally told Liz, I'm like, I'm giving away the farm. I don't care. I just want to give everybody every dollar, every detail, every nugget, everything I can. I had a whole litany of notes, and I got done with the episode, and like sometimes I'm trying to pour it out there, and I care about you guys, and I'm a people pleaser, so I'm like, let's just give every single thing away. And I got done hitting record on the podcast mix, and I'm like, dude, that was everything. I'm like, if you can't chisel out 50 grand or 100 grand after that, I don't know what was left really to say, other than like nuances in the industry that we learned from guest interviews, of course. But and I'm not saying it's the end all be all podcast. What I meant is, this stuff is for free. It's for free.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. And the timing of that was so perfect. I just started getting maybe 4 weeks ago, some inquiries from my customers. I think they're starting to see, the labor shortages that we're seeing, and they're trying to get ahead of the ball.
Sure.
With, getting their snow locked down. And I had just purchased your snow contract, and it was just kind of sitting there as the fill in the blank contract. I hadn't, even started dabbling with it yet. And I was like, you know what? It's time to start putting out the feelers to the current customers. And it's going to be time next week to start advertising to the non-customers right now and getting those contracts going. And the timing of that podcast is kind of fun. It's kind of funny. It's ironic. I had sent out, I think to date now, I've sent out maybe 10 contracts so far, and I've gotten 3 back. I've got verbals on 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm doing solely residential this year. I'm not going to mess with buying any more equipment. I just bought a grandstand in January. So
I saw that.
Not going to buy any more. I bought the grandstand, the multi-force, and all the components that went with it, and it's paid for itself 4 times over already. And I'm just going to keep with what I got on the commercial snowblowers and do residential this year and let it roll from there. And the season's coming up, but timing that podcast is great.
Man, that's awesome. Well, that's music to my ears, man. It's all by design. I've tried to be intentional with creating content that you guys are needing now that you don't even know you need right now. And but that's how I learned with doing YouTube. I have to be 6 weeks ahead of where you guys are at, which makes me have to be 12 weeks ahead of everything because I got to start planning for that next thing. And it's, but you know what? I want to help you guys grow so that way you already got the tools needed or when that customer or whatever customer calls and they're an HOA in the spring and they're like, hey, we got this $30,000 bid. You're like, crap, where do I go? Boom. Just go to launchpreneuracademy.com, get you a contract, an RFP, submit that thing. You're good to go. Whether you get it or you don't get it, life will go on. But you have the tools in your tool belt with the services that we're trying to help you guys out with. Let's do this really quick. Robert, I actually got to button this thing up. I got a hard stop here in about 2 minutes. Where can people find you, number one? And then number two, if you're open to it, I'd love to get you back on maybe December, January, after the first couple snowstorms and hear how you're doing with snow, what you're doing to keep busy in the off season. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I appreciate that.
Cool.
So I'm on Instagram. It's Optimal Lawn Maintenance. I think there's some underscores in there because you can't have spaces on Instagram. But Facebook, Optimal Lawn Maintenance. My Google business page is the same thing. You guys can find me there. I try to post, 2-3 times a week and stay on there a little bit.
Yeah.
And
it's a great page.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome, guys. Well, make sure you give Robert a follow. It's optimal_lawn_maintenance. We'll tag it on the podcast if you guys are watching and following along real time on Instagram. Give us a follow, by the way, on Instagram, both of us. If you guys aren't listening in, some people just stumble upon in the podcast, and we've got a great YouTube channel. We've got a great Instagram account. So if you guys want to follow along, that's where we share a bunch of the updates and resources. But give Robert a follow. He's got a beautiful Instagram page, including a bunch more photos of that brand new Multi-Force, which is awesome. He's got the mulch bucket, the dethatcher I had saw. So much more to catch up with you here. And we can always get some more great details and nuggets out of you towards this fall and winter, my friend. But I gotta hit the stop here because I got another call and never a dull moment, man. So thanks for the time and look forward to catching up with you here on the next one. All right.
Yeah, Brian, I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk again here in a couple months.
You bet, brother. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast, guys. We look forward to catching up with you here on the next one.
Do you want to keep the cash flowing this winter? Head over to launchpreneuracademy.com and check out all of Brian Fullerton's new courses and powerful resources to get you cashing in on that white gold through plowing snow. The snow plowing training course is easy to understand, and you'll learn what it takes to do the job effectively and how to bid, price, and estimate snow plowing for both residential and commercial properties. LaunchpreneurAcademy.com has 3 new resources to take the hassle and guesswork out of securing your snow removal jobs. Plus, there's eye-catching marketing materials that can help you secure new clients quickly. Ready to crush the snow game this year? Visit LaunchpreneurAcademy.com or use the link in the podcast description.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.
This has been a Brian Fullerton and Mr. Producer production.